This is the Lydian Spin with the Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl once more to the place we love the most, the road, in a few days.
Correct. It's not really the road, but it is. It's kind of like a in one area, which is the Los
Nah,
Angeles area. But yeah, sure. Why not? It's
well,
the road.
well, I'm looking forward to boycotting the Academy Awards. I'm like, Oscar, what? Why?
Is that
Jimmy
Sunday?
Kimmel? Who
What
cares?
is that this Sunday?
It's Sunday, but in typical LA fashion, it's very early anyway, and who the hell
Oh, I
cares?
fucking hate those fucking
Oh,
things.
it's so
It's so
ridiculous.
dumb. I
Oh my
mean,
God.
and I mean, just celebrating crappy movies. I mean, I couldn't think of a worse thing to do.
I mean, nothing's going to top the slap that rang out last year. And by the way, I did see the new Chris Rock special,
I saw it too.
Selective Outrage. Yeah, I can appreciate the concept.
I mean,
Selective outrage.
yes. I mean, it wasn't the best stand I've ever saw, but I liked it. And
He made some very good
he,
points.
he makes he makes some good points, and motherfuckers are just so uptight. I mean, heard all different types of criticisms, like NPR is like,
Oh, please.
yeah, it's so stupid. They're like, well, he's really funny and he's a comic genius, but it felt a little outdated. It's like,
Oh,
fuck
come
you,
on.
NPR's
I mean,
outdated.
he's talking about contemporary things, and you know what? Comedy is not for everybody. You're not supposed to like everything. And remember how bastardized and shut down and censored. Although I don't really consider Lenny Bruce a comedian, I consider him a public service announcer. But you're not supposed to like all comedy. And
Every great comic, great one has offended people. Sorry.
myself included.
Yeah,
And
right,
I'm
exactly.
stand up tragedy. And I Well, speaking about being insulted, I mean, how much dumber can the police, not all, of course, you know my fetishizing of them, but how
Sure.
much dumber can this get? Police are revealing new insight into their investigation into that of a Georgia father who died on a business trip to Baton Rouge. Okay. He vanished in February after traveling to Louisiana for a business trip. And his wife told the news that her husband went to a college basketball game and then a pub, but never made it back to his hotel.
Ooh.
So they found no signs of foul play after discovering his body wrapped in plastic and
Ooh.
rolled up in a rug six
Ugh.
miles from where he was last seen. How can you say there's no foul play?
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, this is. Have they never
That's
seen
corrupt.
Murder Comes to Town, Forensic Files, CSI, any number of other, I mean, investigative journalist, Dateline? This is just ridiculous.
So it's there's corruption involved. Something's going
I
on.
mean, no foul play. What did he wrap himself up? Oh, and by the way, he ended up wrapped up behind a funeral home.
No, that's a punchline.
I mean, oh God. I
Uh,
mean, they might not see evidence of foul play, but they better look a little freaking closer. Oh,
I mean, you remember that there was a guy who got arrested in New York maybe 20 years ago, maybe 15. He was a bouncer. He was killing women
ugh,
at clubs. He was fine. He was a bouncer, but he would see who's the most fucked up and he would prey on them. And one of them was completely wrapped up, but like with duct tape. And I don't know if this is myth, but they claimed when they finally like cut the tape
unwrapped.
and wrapped one of the victims' face of horror was like kind of frozen
Ugh,
because she was suffocating with this like kind of like
ugh.
grimace and shoot.
Well, there was
I,
also a gay serial killer like that too. And there were the women that ended up in like Long Island, like on near the water. I mean,
oh, you're talking about like Gilgo Beach and stuff. Did they catch that guy?
I don't know. I
Because
mean,
I thought that guy was still hasn't been caught. In fact, I've heard there's two or three serial killers in the New York area that over the last 20 years they
well,
just never fucking caught. They're just kind of
that's an understatement. The thing
yeah,
is, so
sure,
many, so many people disappear every year in this country.
right.
That's what keeps ID Discovery Channel going. That there's just not even putting a count on it because so many are underreported. Who the hell knows? Wrapped up in plastic in a rug, no signs of foul play. Oh my
The,
God.
the Gilgo Beach one, he preys on sex workers of the night
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
classic. I mean, come on, guys, got to change up the repertoire. But
Jeez. You know what? Just take yourself out if you're
yeah,
so obsessed
seriously.
with death.
So I mean, the that guy who they haven't caught is still calling the victim's family members.
Oh, yeah.
Gets off on that like
Yeah. Well,
5 years
often,
later.
often when that happens, that's a cop involved. I
Well,
mean,
that's what they think. There's a cop because they'll trace it and it'll be from like Times Square or like
yeah,
Yankee Stadium because it's hard to really pinpoint when you're in a
yeah.
big crowd. So he knows all the cop tricks. Anyhow,
I mean, murder, 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 damn fool. This country is just really one of outside of some very specific third world countries run by cartel. Just one of the most murderous places. But, because there's over 350 million people and however many are getting
yeah, but
shot, like 86 mass shootings already this year, whatever. And that's just mass shootings. I mean,
yeah, with mass shootings is 4+, I think.
yeah, well, still feel kind of safe.
Well, another thing that we're kind of number one in is our
things.
our opiate consumption. I didn't know this stat. 80% of prescription opiates are consumed by Americans.
Well,
in the world, 80%.
Yeah, and thank the doctors for that. But not only do Americans have physical pain from all the trauma, bad nutrition, societal bullshit, political aggravation, or just want to get fucked up because alcohol's not working anymore. I mean, but you got to blame it again, not on the victims, but on the freaking doctors that got paid off to prescribe so much. Hello, and thank you, Nan Golden, for going against Big Pharma and trying to take these fuckers down.
So it's Big Pharma. There's a lot of stuff at play here, and there's a lot of talk now that this is partially China's partially involved in this as kind of revenge on the West for their opiate fucking wars. And they're like, well, here it comes back at you, motherfuckers.
Well, and what's interesting is I heard that in Canada, they're going to start to allow the way that they have, legalized cannabis in a lot of states, legalize, but through like a pharmacy, heroin, cocaine, and it was something else. I mean, mushrooms, of course, and I just think, you know what? There'd be a lot less violence if they just regulated. If people want drugs, and the thing is, why are they prescribing drugs that they know are eventually not going to work and are addictive when they could be making, manufacturing, and giving a drug that, first of all, probably resets the neurons in your brain to eliminate pain altogether and could be a curative? Just bring back the original ecstasy. Well, it could happen. It won't, though.
All prohibitions are failures. Now, I'm not saying
exactly.
I'm not saying people should just go out and start shooting up, but all prohibitions are failures, and it's just a feedback chamber. You get
until the government finds a way to make profit, as they do on alcohol, firearms, and tobacco. And I mean, firearms are an addiction as well.
Yes, I mean Simon was talking about that, like. That's the right wing's wokeness. That like basically you dare challenge. What about
the Murdow? I call him the murder trial that just happened. Who had 27 guns? Speaking of opioid addiction, firearm addiction, and murder addiction, and the Murdow family.
That family
South Carolina
is bonkers. And
I mean, I saw the special, and I saw the trial, and it just goes to show. I'm going to go back to Marquis de Sade. You have the money, you have the power, you can fucking kill whatever you want. Hello, at least Epstein didn't kill. He might have driven some to suicide, probably did. Anyway, speaking about death,
yes,
Florida, as always, in our news. And I really suggest that people, because she's really back in the news now after the, fourth rail derailment in Ohio.
Yeah, what the fuck? It's this meter that basically is a regular, like for regulating the tracks to see if there's going to be, if there's a bow in it or some kind of thing fucked up with the tracks where it would derail. That regulation, and I wish I knew it right now. I'm just shooting from the hip, but I did read it. That was a regulation that was put on under the Obama administration and
then taken off under Trump.
Well, just out of spite. It doesn't. I don't get so stupid.
Why she's back in the news, and I think it's very important to subscribe to her newsletter, is Erin Brockovich. I mean, so the recent death by neti pot, that is by tap water in Florida, where a guy was netting his nose with tap water and then got brain-eating amoeba and died. Yeah, well, I mean, so first of all, if you're gonna neti, you should use distilled water or boil it. But anyway, I mean, that's like, can you wash your freaking face? But Florida, by the way, stop banning books, and why don't you ban pollution? Because Florida ranked number one and the highest total acres of lakes too polluted for swimming or a healthy aquatic life. So go
God.
on spring break, face possible brain. I mean, you might already have a brain eating amoeba if you're going on a spring break to Florida anyway. I'm not sure. But I mean, this is just so out of control. And of course, now the red tide, which is,
Oh
the
yeah, on the west
algae
coast of
is
Florida.
is
Yeah.
coming back again now. And a lot of this is because the hurricanes stir up a lot of shit.
Yep.
But it's just that, Florida being like so many of our 50 whatever fucked up states doesn't care about individual health. Now, abortion ban after 6 weeks. No, let's birth children so we can kill them with brain eating amoebas. Jesus, mother.
I mean, well, Chris Rock did the joke that I came up with about 6 or 7 years ago that abortion should be allowed
I
after
know.
after you give birth. And I was like, I came up with that one. Well,
I
whatever.
heard you say it a long time ago.
Yeah,
It's true.
exactly.
It's true. I can't say, look, let's not get me started.
Yeah, we don't get started there.
Let's go a little bit more into your. I might be, the one with the murderous mouth, and we may be doing shows called Murderous again, but I know you love animals. So, Tim, I found this very interesting. Of
Sure.
course, I thought about you, especially after they found that alligator a few blocks from my house.
Yeah, Prospect Park.
Hello. But it's right. I wanted to. This is a quiz for you. Now, obviously, you should not have an alligator in New York, but what exotic animals
Yes.
can you legally have as pets in New York? I wanted to. This is quite interesting.
How long is this list and how many chances?
10. Yeah, 10. You got 10.
that
And they're
you're
very weird. They're very
you're
weird.
allowed? All right. I mean, I'm gonna go pretty far out, like
Yeah.
aardvark anteater.
Nope.
I know you can get those, and those things get to fucking 7 feet.
Right.
All right, hold on.
No, not exactly, but you're kind of close in the
Really?
fact that a cotamundi, which is the long-nosed South American relative of the raccoon, he looks kind of like an anteater, only cuter. So I'll give you half a. I'll give you half a point.
Give me half. All right. Can you have a raccoon?
Well, let's just check. I mean, not that anybody wants them because they're so dangerous, but raccoons. But what would be a raccoon with spikes?
A porcupine.
You can have a porcupine.
Oh my God.
I know. Why can you have a porcupine?
I've pet a porcupine. So yes, at a petting zoo, if they're not like, if the spikes are not erect because they're acting in defense, it's actually kind of like this smooth kind of thing going on.
Did you know, Tim, that I have a collection of porcupine quills just in case they are like mini blow darts? I'm just saying.
I did not know that.
All right.
Hold on. I'm not done. All right.
No, I'm not done with you either because I want to ask you one of my favorite animals, and I'm not talking squirrels. I've mentioned it before. You can have it.
A ferret?
I thought you couldn't. No. Much smaller.
Chipmunk.
Nope. Close. Sugar glider.
Oh, whoa.
The honey gliders, which have a lot of vocabulary skills. They don't like to be alone. They're cuter than a chipmunk. They're smaller, quite adorable. And the first time I ever saw one was on somebody's shoulder in Florida. Okay.
All
now,
right, so certain primates, definitely, right? Certain monkeys you can have.
No, can't have any monkeys.
Really?
But okay, think about Colombia now. Think about what animal is pretty much indigenous to Colombia and also Southeast Asia, and it's quite big.
Not a Black Panther.
No.
I mean, Black Panthers are kind of sexy and
hell
sweet.
yeah.
I mean, they're pretty cool looking.
Yeah, well, they eat too much. Okay, come on now. Think about this. What is the laziest animal?
Three-toed sloth.
Yes, you can have a freaking sloth in New York. What?
Aw.
I other states prohibit sloths. I mean, the thing is, where are you gonna put it?
Well, you don't have to worry about it running away. I mean,
I have a stuffed sloth.
I was in.
I'm not talking about my last boyfriend.
Oh, okay. I was in Panama once, and we're doing a little tour, like the Panama Canal around there, and our tour guide, he knows the area, and he could spot a sloth. They're pretty camouflaged in a tree. He goes, "Oh, there's a sloth over there," and he puts his fingers in his mouth and does this kind of like bird call.
Sloth call?
Well, of like a type of falcon that eats sloth. And I felt bad because the thing got scared, but but instead of like whipping its head around real quickly, it moved at like molasses speed to be like, "Uh-oh, I might be in trouble."
Okay, now Tim,
Yes.
I know you haven't petted one of these,
Okay.
but they are indigenous to a place where you have gone off to pet a furry little creature that you adored.
All right. Well, so that's Australia. I know it was
You
a
can have,
koala.
can you, but no, but what, I mean,
Oh, what
not a
can you
koala.
have from Australia? So is it a marsupial?
Yes.
It is. So you can have a kangaroo.
How can you have a kangaroo in New York? Yes, you can. Where are you going to put it? I mean, unless you store it at Gleason's gym, I don't know what to do with a kangaroo. That's ridiculous.
One. I
You
mean,
better get two
well,
so they can box each other.
I remember one of my favorite old shows that Fox used to have was When Animals Attack.
Oh yes.
And there was one with the kangaroo where a guy's like, oh,
Oh, vicious.
doing like a little boxing. But you know, like when cats claw with their front
Yep.
legs and start raking with their rear legs?
Yeah.
Well, a kangaroo put its hands on this guy's shoulders and
Ah,
starts
kicking with
basically
the back legs.
well, they started raking off the guy's face. It was insane.
All right. This seems like it would be from Australia, but I'm not quite sure. How about a wallaby?
They are from Australia, and I've
They're
seen.
very cute.
Oh, they're cute. Because I saw them at the koala sanctuary, and it basically looks like a furry cannonball, right? It's kind of like this, or is that a wombat? I get them all mixed up.
I think you're getting that maybe mixed up.
Maybe I'm thinking of a wombat.
The wallaby, no, he looks kind of like a cross between a kangaroo and a fox.
Oh yeah, that's the wallaby. I'm thinking about the wombat, which is like this, like mini legs, like furry cannonball that if you hit in the outback will fuck up your car, break your axle. It's just like a solid mass of muscle. I don't think you could probably have a Tasmanian devil though.
No, although I've had a few of those in my life before.
Anyway,
if
reptiles, you must be able to have.
Of course, you can have reptiles. Yeah,
can you
of
have
course.
a python though?
Lizards, sure, why not? And this one is really cute. I've never even seen one of these before. They're very curious, always getting into things, love digging. So cute. A member of the fox family, the fennec fox.
Where's that from?
It says that, I don't know, but it's the only one you can legally own in New York, but they look really tiny and very sleepy. Now, Tim, if you could have one of these. Oh, wait. Oh.
What's that?
Oh, a bear cat. A binturong must be from Southeast Asia.
Yeah, they are from Southeast Asia.
They're
very. They're not that big, right?
Nope, they're very cute.
Small.
They have very deep brown eyes and whiskers. Now, Tim, if you could choose one,
please,
what would it be?
Out of the list we just had?
Of course.
Fucking kangaroo all day.
You and Simon could have a kangaroo each and then have boxing competitions.
No, I mean, it'd be hilarious. Like, just kind of.
I'm going to teach the kangaroo how to throat punch.
It's just kind of hanging out. What are the babies called? Joeys?
The Joeys, yeah.
Because, in Australia, once you get out of the city, kangaroo
they're
are
everywhere.
Yeah, they're like deer. They're here. Yeah. They're like deer here. And when we were in Castlemaine, I was like, you know what? When's the next time I'm going to be in the countryside of Australia? So I was like, we're going to hit the town tonight.
And you went, let's go back to the petting zoo that you went to for the koalas. It was so hot, but you were dead set and you went and pet a koala.
Well, the original plan was I was going to go hit waves or go snorkeling or scuba diving off the Gold Coast, but I got food poisoning. And you warned me.
I did.
The only time I had food poisoning on a plane,
I warned you.
Happened to be like the longest flight you can fucking take. I was going to Australia. Yeah, it sucked. But it passed in 24 hours. But that meant I had to stay in Brisbane, and instead of swimming with sharks, I had to hug a koala bear, and not the end of the world.
I don't blame you. Anyway, speaking of, you got anything else to wrap this up with before we go into?
Let's see if we
before we go into the animalistic Mark Morgan, who's our guest on this show.
Well, this woman Paula Locklear of Virginia arrived at this guy's door. They did not know each other, according to him. She was completely naked, and she starts pounding on the back door, and she has a iron casket.
Cast iron frying pan.
Cast iron frying pan. What the hell?
An iron casket as well.
That'd be insane.
Great.
That'd be insane. No. So, and she's pounding on it, and she starts screaming, "Get out of her house! It's hers! And like he's like, what the hell are you talking about? And he opens the door. He's like, do you need help? And she fucking hits him over the fucking head with it. And then he's like, he's about to die. And then it's Virginia. He pulls out a gun and shoots her on the leg. He didn't kill her. Just to
What a gentleman.
yeah, she must have been schizophrenic. Oh, I wanted to also go into this one. Did you hear about the woman in Asbury Park in New Jersey? She gets an eviction notice, and she's like, "Fuck that guy." She warns the neighbors, like, "You might want to leave. I'm about to fucking blow the fucking building, the house up." And they're like, "Huh?" They leave with the neighbors with their kids. Leave. Like, I think she's serious. She turns on all the gas,
Blew it
lights a
up.
match, and blew. I mean, she died and her cats died, but she blew up the whole fucking house.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
it's interesting that you talk about two female psychos because as I'm preparing for our big show at Zebulon, our Boycott the Academy Awards with the debut of my the badass babes of burlesque who I'm workshopping to do spoken word, and I have up on my computer. I thought I would end this with a poem because
please.
this is actually our theme song. But we only ever go into the music, and we just had Tommy Grenis on last week, who wrote the music to this. And this is a female stalker song. Now
Mm,
I don't endorse stalking. You don't stalk the stalker. But if I was, this is a stalking poem song from the female point of view, and it's called "Smoke in the Shadows." It is our theme song. I thought we could end with a poem. I'm
okay,
doing this for you, Tim.
please.
Close the curtains.
Ooh.
Don't answer the phone. You got an unlisted number. Your address is unknown. Oh, you can leave town, but I won't leave you alone. Try calling me, baby, but there ain't nobody home. I smoke in the shadows. I breathe like a ghost. You sleep with the lights on. Do you think you're alone? Knife under your pillow, hands around your throat. Am I hurting you, baby? Try kicking this Love Jones. Shooting it up didn't save you. Drinking it down, it only numbed you. Scratching this itch ain't gonna stop this. Ain't it a bitch the way I got you? Running to daddy, he can't help you. Praying to Jesus didn't save you. Calling on Shiva, did he hear you? Summon a witch, he won't protect you. Locking the door, it didn't hide you. Cocking the gun, it didn't scare me. Calling the popo didn't help you. Restraining order didn't stop me. Pull down the shade, I'll still be peeping. Open your closet, catch me creeping. Gets me so hot to watch you panic. Cease and desist just made me manic. Loving you, baby, is a sickness. Like jacking up on angel dust, doped up with your sex magic. Now I'm lusting for your blood. Don't hang up on me. Does this sound like a fucking threat? The only way you're leaving me is in the trunk of a car.
Whoa.
Close the curtains. Don't answer the phone. You got an unlisted number. Your address is unknown. You can leave town, but I won't leave you alone. You want to try calling me, baby? Well, ain't nobody home. I smoke in the shadows. I breathe like a ghost. You sleep with the lights on. Do you think you're alone? Knife under your pillow, hands around your throat. Am I hurting you, baby? Try kicking this Love Jones. Yeah. Now, that actually is going out to Mark
Ooh.
Morgan, our next
Ooh.
guest, because for some reason,
Yes.
Mark Morgan brings out the predator in me. Now, I don't know why. He's really sweet. I guess because he's not afraid of me, I don't think, or he pretends he's not. He
No.
allows me to harass him. And, I reel myself back in most of the time. I'm anywhere at all times because I have to. With Mark Morgan, and I think our talk with him is going to show just
What?
how much he brings out the predator in
Wait,
me.
he does do that, and there's like when you two communicate, there's like this subtext that you guys are kind of you're having a couple conversations at once, which I enjoy witnessing.
I have to say, from the minute I met him, there was just something about him that rubbed me the right way. What can I say? I'm afraid if I rubbed him, something might fall off. Anyway, this is episode number 191. Liddy Lunch, Tim Dahl, the Lydian Spin with Mark Morgan.
Speak, Lydia.
No, I refuse to. I'm on a strike.
Has
I'd
anyone
like
asked
to
Lydia to
strike.
speak
I'm glad
before?
Mark Morgan's here. He's big enough to take a strike.
No one's ever said that in the history of humanity.
Lydia,
speak.
Speech. I've heard people say speech before.
Speech. Yeah, and then I've said suck my left nut, and they usually abide by it. But okay, are we good to go?
We're good.
Well, let me announce. This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, as usual, Simon Slater in the background getting ready for a dinner date or such, he said, and Mark Morgan, most famous for sightings and various other musical atrocities, especially his latest release. And I have to ask, I was going to save this question, but I got to start off with this. Mark Morgan, why noise? Why noise?
Why noise? Why noise? Geez, I never thought of it as being noise.
What do you think of your last compositions as being? Are they orchestrated chaos?
No, I mean, well, are you talking about like my new band?
I'm talking about your new music, yeah, that you sent me and I
I mean,
listened.
I like to joke that it's secular religious music.
Even
No.
Satanists might have a problem with it.
No, I don't know. I just don't really. I mean, I don't know what other goes to other people's heads. I just don't feel. I don't feel compelled to categorize it. I'm just like, well, I'm just doing this, and I don't think of it as noise. I mean,
as I said
I
before,
don't know.
orchestrated chaos. Let's go back to the beginning. Obviously, you're using different kinds of implements to provide your musical torture onto the public. But did you start with the guitar?
Um, my mother bought me a keyboard, I think when I was 11. They didn't go very far.
Was it like one of those little Casio little ones, or was
yeah,
actually a real?
yeah. I mean, it was the Casio. It had no. I mean, it was like some '80s garbage.
Right.
Yeah, and then that didn't work out too well. And then years later, I started playing guitar.
Who inspired you to pick up the guitar? It is a rather atrocious instrument in most hands, mine included.
I agree with you now, and I've agreed with you for about 25 years. But at the time when I was 17,
our secret agreement. We'll talk about that later.
The only fucking thing we agree with, Lydia.
No, we have a lot in common, and it's kind of frightening.
No, I just, I mean, I was like a fucking kid who grew up in the 80s and just like there's just guitars all over MTV. It's like, dude, that looks cool. So yeah, I wanted to play guitar. And as soon as I started playing, I was like, or tried to play, I was like, wow, this is really hard. Yeah, and it kind of proceeded from there.
So you never pursued the traditional approach to the guitar. You kind of you saw where the bar was and what the basically society's perception of what the guitar norm was, and you said, oh, there's a better avenue here and it's gonna be mine.
Well, Tim, I saw where the tremolo bar was, and that made a big difference.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I didn't have one on mine.
I like the tremolo bar.
I think if you could have waved a wand over my head and be like, you, Mark Morgan, will now sound like Jimmy Page, I've been like, fuck yeah, dude. But if you think I was gonna put the time in to sound like that, fuck no, I'm not doing that shit. Come on, no way. Like,
well, look, any instrument in the hands of visionaries like ourselves who are not schooled, because we're not. I mean, as I always like to say, if you don't have a vision, don't give it a sound. But when you do have a vision, that sound is probably going to be very selective ears will find it. And that's just, we have to do it anyway because it's what we do.
Sure. I mean, the thing is, like, I mean, yeah, I think when I started, like, I definitely had some pretensions of being like, I want to be different. But I wasn't really sure what that was going to be.
Oh, you're different, honey. You are different. Let's face it. There's only one of you, and that's
call the fire department. Lydia's out on a limb. Well, yes, I know I'm different, but yeah. I mean, yeah. I just can't remember. I mean, it was like 33 years ago when I started playing guitar, and I don't really had. I mean, I think when I started playing it and started like through a little crappy practice amp and was finding all these like hell noises out, I was like, well, this sounds cool. And to rope you into this convo, I remember first hearing No New York a few years after I started learning, when I started playing guitar. And I was already using a slide, and it was kind of, Lydia Lunchy sounding, because, if you're playing a slide and making a bunch of racket, it can tend to go there. And I remember first heard, Teenage Jesus, and I was like, what the fuck? Did this fucking bitch go into a time machine, see me play, rip me off, and go back into time? because you did.
Yeah, think about that when I get there, son. Yeah.
Liddy, you ripped me off. Fuck you, man.
But but you have.
You know what? If there was something to rip off, it would be your clothes, and then you'd be really different from most everybody else who's been on this podcast.
Well, I mean, Mark, you had your peers in Michigan. That's where you grew up. Did you find your tribe? What happened? I mean, you had, Andrew WK produced one of your records. From the outside for us non-Michigan. What do you call someone from Michigan, by the way?
I'm Michigander.
I'm Michigan. For us non-Michiganders, your generation, there was just a kind of a group of people that were kind of maybe exploring similar fringe.
Well, wait, how did Andrew WK get involved in these shenanigans from Michiganis?
That's a long story, but like to answer the first thing about Michigan, I mean, I grew up, in the far northern reaches of the Detroit suburbs, and I didn't know anyone. Like none of my friends were interested in what I was interested in, music wise. Like, I remember first hearing, GS Lizard, Birthday Party,
And by the way, two of my favorite bands. Thank you very much. I love Jesus Lizard. I love Birthday Party.
Yes, and I quite enjoy them too. But no one I knew really liked them. And I didn't really know anyone. I didn't really meet anyone in Michigan almost the entire time I was there. It was into the same things I was. Like I met, Aaron and Nate from Wolf Eyes, but it was like way towards the end of my stay there. I mean, I was always kind of like, I don't know, it's like on my own, not to be like, cry me a river here, but that's just kind of what it was,
But, the reason you didn't become an incel was because you at least found Jesus Lizard and Birthday Party. But now that you're old enough to become a sincel, which is my cult, which is the more they kill, the more we fuck. Welcome, Mark Morgan.
Jeez, okay. I don't know where to go for this.
Well, all right,
don't worry about it. I'll guide you right along.
So you left the northern suburbs. And did you go directly to New York, or?
Well, no, I went to college at
Ann Arbor.
In Ann Arbor.
Okay.
Well, what did you study there?
I got a degree in history, and it was just because it was the only classes I liked, and it was easy for me. And my parents were like, "What are you gonna do with it?" Like, I don't know. I moved to New York and work at a record store, which is what I did.
What's your favorite period in history? I mean, I know that's very abstract. I mean, come on.
Well, it is very abstract, and I'm not going to answer that.
Well, I'll tell you mine. The one that has yet to fucking happen. How about that?
Well, I don't know. I'm interested in all kinds of.
So did Sightings form in Ann Arbor?
No, it started in New York.
That's what I thought.
We played together. I mean, what group did we? You were Sightings. What did I do? We played together.
What's that?
Sightings and something I was doing had a gig together, but what was I doing?
You were doing Teenage Jesus.
One of the rare things. Yeah, one of the rare revivals.
It was at the Music Hall Williamsburg.
That must have been very exciting.
I remember the money was short at the door, and it wasn't enough to meet your guarantee. I remember like the promoter was like, "Hey, I got nothing for you guys." I was like, "Yeah, that's cool, man. Don't worry about it."
Nah, that's not what I said though. Me.
But yeah, I moved to New York in 97, and I put up a flyer like within weeks of being here, looking to start a band. We'll sell your equipment for drugs, et cetera, et cetera.
Old school.
And met John, the drummer. He called me. And then about a year later, I saw a flyer that Richard, the bass player, put up. And then we started playing. And then, Sightings was my first band I was ever in.
And you guys, 12 albums or something? You're fairly prolific.
I think we did 10 records. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was not more traditional, but it had more traditional instruments in Sightings than what you now are utilizing. Is that correct?
Well, Sightings was bass, guitar, drums, pretty meat and potatoes.
But it doesn't sound like bass, guitar, drums.
It doesn't sound like meat and potatoes, honey. Sounds like goulash of the highest order.
No, it's like really good meat and potatoes.
All right. What's
John
wrong
was playing some synth pads, and Richard had his own unique sound. And
I liked
you.
it.
You have your own unique sound. In fact, it seems like every couple of years, Mark, you kind of, out of curiosity, go back and attempt some kind of traditional guitar playing, just out of maybe alone in your own bedroom. I don't know. Not on out in public.
Mark Morgan, just imagine alone in my bedroom with me, and we're doing 2 guitar solos with slides. God, I just had like a water world fantasy somehow, and I don't have fantasies, and I don't even like water world. I'm just
my
saying.
lawyer will be talking to your lawyer soon enough.
Yeah. Did you say I will be tucking you soon enough before I peg you? I didn't say that. I don't. You know what? I do not know why, but ever since I first met you, and I don't even know when that was, you really bring out the fucking vulgarian in me. What is that about you, Mark Morgan? What is it? Why do you do that to me?
Because I'm just a sweet boy next door, I guess. I don't know.
You're like a hunky farm boy from the northern woods that I'd like to go hunting with. Hey, let me enjoy myself for a minute, kids.
Anyone listening, I am not a farm boy.
No, he's not.
No, but hey, I can have a fantasy for once.
Well, you're actually both Rust Belt boys.
Hello, that's right. I'd like to get him below my Rust Belt. Hello, stop it. See, you do this to me, Mark Morgan.
Oh, wait a minute. I
take no responsibility.
Lydia, we're both from Rochester. I'm from Rochester, Michigan, from Rochester, New York.
What? Oh, no wonder I love you. Hate you.
So, were you in a band in Ann Arbor?
No. Sightings was the first band I was around.
Sightings was the first band you were in?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, first band. Wow. And so how did you meet Richard and John?
Yeah, it was through flyers.
Old school. All right. Yeah. And did you meet other musicians when you were looking for musicians? Well,
me and John, the drummer, met early on, and we played through with a lot of bass players. Okay. And I remember there was one session we did where John's like, "Oh, I know this guitar player and bass player I want to play with," and they were just fucking total shredder dudes. And I remember this one guy kind of looked at me with an arched eyebrow. Like, I just saw laser beams coming out of his eyes. It was basically just like, "Dude, you're an idiot." I was like, "Yeah, what's your problem?" "Yeah, I know I'm an idiot. Fuck you." Like, what's the big deal?
Did you ever get a date by posting a flyer?
What's that?
Did you ever get a date by posting a flyer? I don't mean a show. I mean,
I never looked for a date via a flyer.
It's not too late. I love it. Most wanted. Most wanted, and then you could list your specific fantasy. I kind of like
guitar player looking for date. That's a funny flyer. I mean, someone should.
Well, being a Luddite or a Luddite, somebody that's never gone on Grindr, Tinder, Butterfly, any of those things. I mean, a flyer could be kind of handy now and then. Kind of like it.
Sure,
I'm into the concept. Maybe I'll check it out.
So it's funny because I'm pretty judgmental. So when these shredder guys who kind of gave you an eye, so you weren't judging them; they're judging you more.
Oh no, I was judging them too.
Okay, all right.
I was like, fuck you, man, you're the worst. I don't like this shit up.
Oh my god. So all right. So then Sightings forms, and then off to the races. You're already playing shows pretty quickly.
After a few months after we started playing, yeah.
And that was like Glasslands and places like that.
That was a little bit down the line.
Was it first Manhattan?
Who were some of your first friends in New York, Mark? I mean, so you come from the Rust, leave the Rust Belt, you enter the the New York scene. Who'd you hang out with? Who were some of the first people you met here
in New York?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Kim's. I started working at Kim's about a
Kim's
month after
Video.
I started working there about a month after I moved here, and I mean, that completely changed my life. I mean, in a million. I mean, it just opened up a lot of doors of meeting different people. And
let me just interrupt for a minute, because Kim's Video was a very important video store that went on for quite a few years, and a lot of people, and music store that a lot of people worked at, and they had all kinds of, it was just an extreme range of DVD of movies and knowledgeable people working there, and a lot of people actually put time behind the counter, and then everyone would go there.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of moments of actually being there where you're making $7 an hour where you're like, dude, this fucking sucks. But I mean, it's retail. I mean, yeah, it's a cool store, but it's a lot of fucking nonsense. But I just made a lot of what I think are lifelong friends from working there. And I don't know, it means a lot to me having been there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes it's like, it's not the pay, it's the payoff. And the payoff was lifelong friends.
Yeah, well, my rent was $375 a month, so I was like, yeah, I can do this. It's fine.
What were some of the exploitation or drive-in or noir films that you found by working at Kim's that really oh yeah, this is it for me?
I barely watched movies. I was so one track mind with rec and music that
right.
Amazing.
I had a free, I could rent videos for free, and I would never even take advantage of it. I mean, I watched, a few things, but
music was your bitch, not movies.
Yes, very much so. I'm not very multifaceted.
So how quickly did Sightings decide to take it on the road? I mean, how much did you guys tour?
I mean, I think we toured the U.S. 3 times, coast to coasters. We did Europe 5 times, I think. I mean, it was something I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
I mean, really early on, I was like, we got to tour, but of course, maybe we should get sort of good first before we tour. But then I don't know how good we were. I mean, the first tour we did in the US, I think if I watched shows from back then, I'd be like, wow, these guys really suck. Like, this is not good.
Well, I mean, you guys also took risks. So with risk, sometimes you're going to fall on your face, but that's worth it if you ask me.
How did Sightings go down in Europe? Because, and anything that's more adventurous always does better there anyway. So how did it go down in Europe? And did you play with any, significant opening or open for any significant bands?
Yeah, I mean, we did some fun shows. I mean, and I met, I met a fair amount of people in New York where I never, it's like I just remember ringing up Martin Rev at Kim's. I mean, it's not like we ended up going to dinner together, but it was just a pleasure meeting someone like that. And
I'm talking about your European tours.
Oh, no, everything there sucks. No, come
on. well, the Norwegians picked you up, and it's interesting about Sightings. Load is. Were all your records on Load?
No, we the first. We had 4 or 5 records on Load, but we did other labels too.
Okay, but somehow you guys culturally penetrated the industrialized world, and so you run into people, particularly younger people. It actually had a big impact. I mean, young kids will come up to me and ask me about you guys. So, and so somehow it was getting out there. Somehow your voice was somehow penetrating all the cluster of banal rock and roll.
I mean, I guess to some degree, but then I think about all the shows we did. It was a lot of shows with 6 people.
Well,
I'm not bemoaning it. It's just that was the deal. I mean, I wasn't expecting 500 people every night. I mean, it was what the fuck? Have you heard our music? That's not gonna happen.
But even on mass consumed music, even the Rolling Stones, for a long time, believe it or not, I mean, they're huge, but they'd play there'd be about 8 cities on the planet that would be packed and huge, and then they're touring, and there's all this in between shit.
Well, Tim, if they would just do Cocksucker Blues again, maybe they'd be more popular, at least in my house. I'm just saying.
Sure. So, all right. Well, now I'm going to take a different.
They had a pretty good run. I'll give them
that. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. That's a whole other. That's a whole other.
So, Mark, when you play for 6 people, I would say I've had a gig or two that, trust me, especially in the beginning, there were maybe 10. At Suicide, there were maybe 10 at some of their shows. When there's 6 people, at least those 6 people are hardcore into it, or they're just drunk and looking for something to do that night. You still got to do it. You still got to give it. You got to give it to them.
Well, yeah, what else are you going to do?
You got to give it to them.
Yeah, I mean, you got to play. And plus, I mean, I like playing. I mean, I definitely even if there's one person there, I mean, I'm assuming everyone here could relate to this. I just know that if there's even an audience of 1 person, it makes me focus, and it makes it more interesting. Even if there's 1 person.
My best performances are in front of 1 person at a time. I might just tell you that right off the bat, but however.
Now we're talking. Well, I do. It's a badge of honor. I had 1 show where I was touring. I was in Norway, of all places, and no one showed up. And the person at the door, the club manager and the bartender decided to go out for a smoke at one point, and no one. I was playing no one, and I was like, "Wow, this is part of the experience," and I'm not even upset about it. One thing, and because you played in to live and shave in LA at some permutation of it. I mean, one thing about Rat Bastard, I would always say, and Tom, was older guys kind of like showcasing to us younger guys, like, hey, who gives a fuck if no one's here? And you know,
well, that's not always true, because remember Tom being a total piss ass when no one was there. So
well, maybe that's more Rat then.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more Rat. So when you have played To Live and Shave in LA, what was that? Just that last return tour, or have you done other stuff with them?
I did a tour with them in 2004. That was the lineup. It was like the original trio of, you know, Tom, Rat, and Ben Walcott.
That would be Tom's the late
Tom Smith.
The late Tom Smith, yes.
And it was like me and Don Fleming on guitar too. Okay. And that was 2004. And I mean,
interesting how Tom Smith could persuade people to back him up with his pomposity and poetry.
He was an avant-garde car salesman.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, didn't his family, weren't they involved in like car racing or something?
I think his dad owned like a stock team in the 60s.
Okay, all right. He's one of a kind. Rest in peace.
What are some of your other talents, Mark Morgan? Because I have a feeling that you're hiding something from us. I have a feeling that you are a specialist in some other art forms or just life forms.
All right.
What would you say are your specialities?
I'm pretty decent at Excel.
Ooh,
good to know.
Pretty good bowler.
Whoa. Bowler. Whoa. I bet you are. I love to throw balls down a lane and hit. I love bowling. I love it.
I feel like I'm being interviewed by Don Rickles right now.
You know, well, hang on. I mean, bowling in New York is now $50 a fucking hour. Who can afford that? That's bullshit. I'll meet you in Michigan. We'll have a tag team bowling.
No, we'll go to like Paramus or something. We'll make it a day.
Have you ever done Baltimore duck pin or New England candle pin bowling before?
I have not. No.
How about bocce? Are you good at bocce? Good at bocce?
I'm pretty good. I played a lot of bocce ball as a kid.
How did I know?
Upbringing, so.
How did I could just see you? I could see you with a bocce ball.
Motherfuckers love to play bocce ball.
Hey, so do the Sicilians. We love bocce. Yep. What can I say? Again, anything throwing a ball down an alley just makes my heart sing. What can I say? Especially if I cut one off and it was the left one. I'm not saying anything.
Jeez. Whoa.
Hey, reel it in. Tie it up, Timmy. Tim, you're getting out of control tonight.
I think I'm roping it in tonight.
Well, I'm projecting like some of our friends are really good at. So I'm just projecting like some people we know. Yeah. I'll blame you for my crimes, but why would I? I'm not guilty. Hello.
So, I mean, not to gossip. The word is with Sightings, one day you guys go to your rehearsal space and John's stuff is all packed up and he's gone. Is that how that went down?
Well, no, he quit via text message.
Okay.
Which was like,
what a bad date.
So he quit via text message and was like, okay. And then, yeah, like a week later, Richard went to our space and everything was packed up. The funny, like, total, like, goth emo move that John did was like Richard had bought him the brain for the synth drums.
Yep.
And John left that at the practice space because it was like, dude, like really?
Oh, you wanted him to take it?
No, he left it for us.
No, I know, but
it's like, dude, come, he's back, drama queen. Come on, man.
Oh well, I didn't know. John was always really quiet, so around me, I barely had any conversations with him.
He's one of my favorite drummers.
Well, he's unique, and you guys had a unique sound, and no criticisms on the artistic end of that, but had you guys, was it time? Was he correct?
I mean, it was exhausting. I mean, we practiced like 3 nights a week for, 12 or 13 years. It's like, you start getting older. It's like, really 3 times a week?
No.
Yeah. It was exhausting. I mean, I was ready to keep on going, but also when he sent that message, I was like, cool, like whatever.
But then you went on to form
Silk Purse,
which I thought was excellent, and that didn't last very long.
Yeah, it was like a year. We recorded a record, and then Justin, the third guy on electronics, he said he wanted to focus on painting. I was like, okay, that's cool.
Oh, so is that what happened?
Yeah.
Did you guys tour?
We went to We went to Boston once.
That's not touring, but yeah,
come on, it's a tour, man. Fine,
baby. But of all places, that's Boston's not the easiest crowd. I mean, did they?
Boston's like probably like, I don't know. I feel like that's one of the easiest shows in the U.S.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, I just think more so than a lot of other cities. I think there's usually a built-in audience for whatever kind of freakery, tomfoolery, more so than like,
it's not my experience.
I don't know, Hartford.
Well, I don't play Hartford. I mean, I guess if I go to New England, it's kind of like Providence, but that's maybe my band.
Well, I forgot we played Providence too.
Yeah, Providence over Boston, although Boston has produced some great bands. But
can you name me a few?
Siege,
Aerosmith.
No, I would not consider. They definitely created some great musicians. I mean, Tony Williams and
particularly, I would definitely say Aerosmith. That's my favorite Boston band.
Is that your favorite? What was that, Mark? Who?
I would say Aerosmith is my favorite.
Well, there's two Aerosmiths. There's the drugged out 70s Aerosmith, and then there's
yes, please.
Then there's a housewife.
No, thank you.
EX7 80s Aerosmith.
Hey, we'll talk about that later, Mark Morgan. Don't worry. I got stories for you, my friend.
Wait, God, can we do a Lydia podcast about Aerosmith?
70s rock, even like the commercial stuff. Lydia knows quite a bit about that stuff.
Well, I was there and I was deep running, yes. And they were running away from me.
Lydia, would you still say you're a fan of classic rock? I hope so.
I am a of course. I mean, cover songs are my forte. Absolutely.
I would say Lydia's not really a fan of music at this point in her life. I could
be wrong.
The
thing is that now, hang on. I'd like to hang on. I'd like to bastardize classic rock. And if it has really good lyrics, it's interesting because I did a whole covers album with Cypress Grove, and I have a Rorschach test. I'm going to play it for you later. And it's one of the most hated bands. And often the bands that I covered are bands I really hated, but they had great lyrics. But the thing is, we didn't really hear the lyrics when they were on the radio 100 times, 1,000 times in our head. But when I do them, even though the music is completely traditional, people are like, oh, that's what was being said. And I'm like, yeah, and that's why I'm covering it, because the lyrics are fucking great. I'll talk funny, more about that later.
Even if English
is I mean, Retrovirus is covering War Pigs now. Hello.
I saw it live the other night.
Wow.
Yes, right.
Hello. That's pretty fucking good, if you call that classic.
That's funny. It definitely, some of the fans in our little Canadian tour that followed, some of the real kind of idiomatic loyalists, they're a little bummed about it, but other people really loved it. I loved it.
Look, I've covered That Smell by Lynyrd Skynyrd. I've covered Don't Fear the Reaper. Why Don't We Do It in the Road? Midnight Rambler. I Want You by Elvis Costello. Bon Jovi, even. We'll get into that later when we do my own classic rock podcast. Why is that so funny?
I remember one time Sightings, a few shows we covered Thirsty and Miserable by Black Flag, and the great thing was both times after we played it, someone would be like, man, I really like your new song. I was like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if someone connects with it, I mean, sometimes they come at you.
I have to go back to Lynyrd Skynyrd, who I am not a fan of, but, to sing, ooh, that smell, the smell of death surrounds you. I do get a fucking kick out of it. I have to say.
Do you like any Lynyrd Skynyrd, Mark?
Only that song.
Really, the only thing I have to offer about Lynyrd Skynyrd is I remember we played Sightings played a show in tour in France. The only guy who was into it was the guy who set it up. We emptied the room, like just classic old school, like everyone leaves.
Whoa.
And then after we get done, we go outside in the bar next door. Skinner comes on, and I saw 30 French people singing along with Freebird. Dude, that's so fucking insane. It's like,
God.
It's like I've never imagined a bunch of French people sing along with Freebird.
Probably one of my biggest little stamped in my brain forever, kind of maybe similar, no, much worse. Definitely kind of coming back a little fucked up, touring. I think I was in Rotterdam or Amsterdam, going to my hotel room, turning on the TV, and it was UB40 live in Amsterdam, and like a million, like 6'2", like blonde people with dreadlocks dancing and singing along to Red Red Wine. I'm like, there is a hell. Like, I didn't want to see that. I can't unsee. So basically, with classic rock, I guess. I mean, living in Detroit, the Detroit area, Lydia living in the Rochester area, or you guys both being from Rochester,
different Rochester.
You can't really escape it. I mean, that's classic rock kind of dominated that. And then of course, well, Detroit also has, in terms of like black music, like Motown, R&B. I mean, that's
yeah, but exactly, Tim. I mean, Motown, R&B was a rebellion against or or an accessory to classic rock, but classic rock, whatever that means now, is might not be. I mean, for instance, then there was the alternatives like the Stooges, there was Berlin by Lou Reed, there was David Bowie, so that's considered classic rock now.
Detroit.
But at the time it was alternative to classic rock. I mean, and I'm talking, 73, when we had, the heinousness of both like the Eagles and stuff like that, but then we also had Bowie, the New York Dolls soon after, et cetera, et cetera. So I mean, what I hated then, I exploited later. And again,
Fair
because
enough.
the lyrics were great. And, often it's better to what you once hated, you grow to like, than what you once liked, you grow to hate. Wow, that's good.
Well, the relationships with hate and love, if you've been doing it long enough, they're equal commitments in many ways, but just on different sides. I wanted to ask this real quickly, because you're talking about growing up in the 80s. I mean, what about Detroit techno? Did that ever cross your path?
I mean, of course. I mean, that shit. I mean, that stuff was so underground. Like, I mean, I know people have went to raves like in the late 80s, early 90s. It's the classic thing where it's like you can have 1,000 people. Like, I was there. You know how many people were there? 40.
Right.
Fucking, there was no one there.
Right.
It's like. I mean, it gets romanticized, but like, I think it was a super small underground scene, and there was no fucking way that shit was going to penetrate like my little, suburban world. I mean, I didn't really start digging into Detroit techno until I lived in New York, for God's sakes.
Okay.
I mean, that's how obscure it was to me.
Mark, do you listen to any music now? I mean, like,
no.
I don't listen to music. I mean, I like to know what's out there. I have to like check what's going on, but most of the time, unless I have somebody to entertain, I'm not really listening to music very much.
I mean, it was funny. I was talking to a friend, because I drive a lot for a living for my job around the city. I could be listening to music all day if I wanted to. And often I just end up rolling down my windows and driving in silence and smoking and drinking Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's where I'm at right now in life.
I get it.
I mean, there's definitely, look, there's still a lot of music I love, but a lot of it's like the classic thing where it's like, I remember like seeing kind of middle-aged people when I was younger, where it's like, they're just listening to the same shit they listened to when they're younger. You're like, fuck you, old man. And now, you know what? I'm kind of that old man now. I'm like, that's what I like. I mean, I'm still interested in hearing some stuff, but like, I just working. Obviously, I'm not closely hearing, that much of the music of the world, like almost anyone else on the planet. But like, I mean, it's kind of hard to get me excited now. I mean, I think the ages from like 16 to 23, 24, those are the years when things can most imprint on your brain, of just being like, holy shit, this is fucking amazing. It's kind of hard at age 48 to hear something and be like, I'll never be the same human being again. That's not going to fucking happen. I mean, it's
because by that point you've heard almost not everything. We can't hear it, but we've heard a lot of what could possibly be something we actually relate to on a cellular level that was weird enough, outrageous enough, wild enough, or just intimate enough.
Well, I think it's that, but I also think it's definitely a combination of that. And also, like, you just get older and, you're just not as fired up about shit. I mean, some people are, but like, I mean, there's some things I've heard here and there in the last few years where I'm really excited, and I'll tell people about it. I'm like, dude, check this out. It just doesn't happen as much as it did.
But okay, so when you want to go back to something, say that rare moment when you might want to listen to something while you're driving or while you're home alone, what's the first thing you might go to?
Can you even definitely not like a first thing I would put on? I mean, it'd be a different, different shit. Like,
depends on your mood.
Yeah, like I listened to I hadn't heard in years. I listened to Raw Power randomly a few years.
Of course. Hello.
There's another remix of it, and I listened to it, and I was like, you know what? Still pretty good.
Fuck like, yes. Absolutely. Hello. I mean, well, I go back to Dr. John, Night Trip or Gregory a lot. That's where I go back to.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a reason why you do. It's good.
Hello, yes.
Well, I mean, there is if all music stopped today, the surplus of all the music out there, no one could ever get through, couldn't even come close to getting through all of it. I think the whole thing about novelty, that's just like a brain thing. I mean, kids are just constantly absorbing everything, and the brain's just not starving for novelty anymore. And of course, there's X amount of permutations and variations of the same concepts, and so you kind of make these quick assessments based on your experience, and like, I'm not gonna go deeper into this. Like, that assessment's kind of made pretty quickly often.
Yeah, I mean, like, I noticed something. Like, I remember when I was younger, just about playing guitar. I was really focused on, like, I was obsessed with just weird guitar sounds. Like, it just was my life. Like, I would just listen to every fucking Pebbles, Nuggets, whatever garage rock compilation from the 60s. I would buy records if it had a one good 15-second solo. Like, I wanted to know every just messed up thing from the 60s. It catalog in my mind. I was obsessed with it. And I just had this thing in my head where I was like, I want to have that fucked up guitar part be the entire song. I don't want to wait 2 minutes for it.
Right.
I want to be the whole thing. And I just got really, really obsessive about it. And I just I mean, there's so much music out there besides focusing on something stupid like avant-garde guitar. But like, most guitar shit I hear from some New Jack person, I'm just like, come on, really?
Well, Mark, maybe your next album could be gathering all those sounds that NASA is recording from interstellar, outer stellar space, or, for instance, the sound of a spider building a web. And that sounds like something that could be interesting to commingle together and make something that's never been heard before, except for unless you're in outer space, which some of us live in all the time. Anyway, this has been the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, Mark Morgan, one of my favorite characters in New York. I don't know why. There's just something about him. I can't help but taunt him because he's from Rochester.
And by the way, because what's up? I'm surrounded by people with alliterations for names. So I got Mark Morgan, Simon Slater, Lydia Lunch. I also got Weasel Walter in my life, Nonder Nevi. It's just like I'm surrounded by all these alliteration. I don't know.
Yeah, but you have more nicknames than anybody.
Well, it's fine. But Mark's Mark's new album is another alliteration name, Gauta Granley. So it's MM and
Gauta Granley
and GG is what you guys are called. You should do a plug of your new record because you're going to be going to Europe soon.
Yes, so I'm in a new band called Rump State, which is me and my good buddy Gauta Granley from Norway, and we're touring in Europe this month, and we'll be in Paris on March 18th. And my buddy Pat from No Neck Blues Band will be joining us too. And check it out, man.
Yes, check it out.
If they're there, they're not square, they'll be there, and let's hope it goes really good, because anything is better than not doing anything. Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Mark Morgan, thank you very much. The Lydian Spin.